for those who are in a place where you have the ability to close your eyes, you may find it useful to close the eyes. It's not required. But one benefit of closing the eyes is that it reduces the amount of visual stimulation. So it just will reduce the amount of visual processing. So free some things up for you to be able to put your attention on other aspects of your experience. And just notice whatever thoughts or expectations or ideas you might have right now. So if you think that you already know what this is about or where it's going, if you think you've already had some experiences that maybe what I'm referring to is deep relaxation, then perhaps you would be willing to just set those aside for the time being so that you could actually have some kind of fresh experience, something that's not just a repetition of the past. You could be open to the possibility that who you are really is that newness, that freshness, so that it's not something that you can find by digging around in the past. You'd actually have to look here now in order to discover that. And you could maybe just notice whatever you notice. So you probably could become aware that there is various sensory processing happening. You might be aware of, for example, sound. So you might be hearing, presumably, the sound of my voice. Probably there are other sounds that are happening, perhaps in the space where you are, perhaps interiorly, there might be sounds like you might become aware of the sound of your own heart beating, for example. So there's sound. Now, even with your eyes closed, there's still some visual processing going on. Even if you say to yourself, well, all I'm aware of is the sense of blackness or darkness, something like that. Still, there's that much. And some people will notice other things. So you could just be aware of whatever visual processing is happening. You could also become aware of whatever kind of tactile sensations there are, like you might notice the sense of pressure on your skin, on your body, wherever you might happen to be making contact with the floor or a chair. If your hands happen to be resting in your lap, you could notice the sense of the pressure on the skin of the hand on the lap and the lap against the hand. Maybe you notice the experience or the sensation of what you would consider to be the clothing that you're wearing against your skin. Maybe you notice the sense of warmth or coolness on the skin coming into contact with the air. You could have a sense of your sense of yourself in space. So if you are sitting upright, then you might notice how you are aware that you're sitting upright. This is what we call proprioception, just the internal sense of how you are in space. You could become aware also of any kind of internal sensations. And without even having to label them or figure out what they mean, you could just be aware of them. And perhaps there's a particular sensation that you could give your attention to for a moment. Any sensation at all. And you might notice that even if you have any thoughts or opinions or labels or images, that come to mind regarding that sensation that it's possible to just tune into the sensation directly without consulting any of those other mediating agents, so that you could just be aware of the actual direct experience, just the raw sensation. And maybe you could even open to that just with curiosity. So not trying to get anything from it or figure it out or get rid of it or anything, but just out of curiosity, just to find out what that is like, to actually open with curiosity, just discover what happens when you do that. And you might also notice any number of other things. So if you happened to notice thoughts, that you could just be aware of those thoughts and curious about the nature of the thoughts. So sometimes when thoughts happen, we have a particular habitual relationship to them. We engage with them in a particular way. What happens if you just are curious about them? So you might, for example, be curious about how you're aware of thoughts. A lot of the time, we have the habit of just going directly to engaging with the content of the thoughts. But what happens if you're just curious about what's the actual nature of the thought itself? How do you know about the thought? For example, a lot of the times we'll have an auditory representation of the thought. Like sometimes we're hearing the thought as though it's that there's a voice inside our own heads or something like that. So you can just be curious if that's true. Or sometimes thoughts happen as images, so you can just notice if you see something. You could just be curious if you didn't have any sensory awareness of the thought, would there be a thought? You know, for example, if you could not inwardly hear or see or feel anything, how would you know that you had a thought? Is it possible to have a thought without that kind of internal representation? And again, this is just an invitation to explore directly, so as not to get theoretical or hypothetical, but to actually just notice directly within yourself, what would that be like? And it's possible that through all this exploration, you might notice that perhaps you're already finding that you're more deeply relaxed. Perhaps you discover that you have the capacity to more deeply relax. Or perhaps you're discovering that you have more curiosity about what it actually means to deeply relax. Maybe you just have more useful information that helps you to actually start to explore that possibility for yourself without having the baggage of the old ideas. So whatever your experience is absolutely perfect. So there's no one experience that is the right experience to have other than just the experience that you're having. And the main thing is just to realize that you have the ability to interact with that experience in new ways. So rather than thinking that the experience, that there's a thing called an experience, and that the experience is either good or bad, or desirable or undesirable, that actually anything that is happening is an opportunity for you to explore the relationship that you have with that experience, or put more clearly, perhaps, to explore the relationship with how you do things internally, how you actually create your experience. So you can actually start to witness directly how it is that you create your experience. And in witnessing that, this starts to give you more options, whether you're conscious of those presently or not. you'll start to have more and more conscious awareness of those options the more that you explore this, because you'll just naturally start to discover that there's so much more going on than you thought, and that you have so much more room for exploration and discovery and play and change and transformation than what you would have thought previously. So when you would like, at any time, you're free, of course, as you've always been, to do whatever you would like. So if you would like to continue to explore this deep relaxation as I've been guiding it, then you're welcome to do so. And if you would like to do something differently, then you're welcome to do so. If you have your eyes closed and you would like to continue to keep your eyes closed, you're certainly welcome to do so. And if you have your eyes closed and you would like to explore opening them at any time, you're welcome to do so. So this deep relaxation, as I'm calling it, is really about self-awareness. It's about knowing that there's a spaciousness, that there's an opportunity for pausing, for exploring what's actually happening rather than reacting. And so often we may just be caught up in reacting without even knowing that that's what we're doing. We might think that we're choosing, but actually what we're doing is just reacting. And so in that stress and reaction, there's a kind of unconsciousness. And so there's no possibility in that space of actually choosing anything or doing anything differently. So all that will happen then will be just more of the same. We might think that we're doing something differently, but actually nothing will change unless and until we access this deep relaxation. So this deep relaxation allows the possibility of actually doing something differently, because now there's actually awareness of what's happening. Because what's happening is actually an internal process. As I said, it's a relationship with how you create your experience internally, how you represent your experience. So if you're not aware of that, then everything's going to be just more of the same, because you'll be, when you're in a distressed state, then you will not have the sense that there's any opportunity for actually exploring options. There's going to be a sense of urgency. And so the only things that will come to you will be the same kinds of things that have come to you in the past, which you've already tried and which have not yet given you the kinds of results that you want. So this deep relaxation offers you the possibility of doing something differently.